Today's anonymous question is how to be more vulnerable with a partner. That's a great question. Vulnerability is really a sign of courage and strength, even though for so many years it has been seen otherwise. And Brene Brown really is the mother of teaching all things vulnerability. And I really look up to her, and I've done a lot of research on her work. And one of the things that I love that she says is that vulnerability really isn't about winning or losing. Vulnerability is about showing up ready to be seen and to be seen and heard when we have no promise of what that outcome is going to be, right? And so that's really what it is in a partnership too. It's you wanting to be seen and you wanting to be heard for who you are and what you bring to the table, and also who you're going to become as we evolve through life, right? And vulnerability is contagious, which is really, really cool, right? And so what in a partnership, a way to go about that is just choosing that is the kind of relationship that you want. What is going to create a healthy and sustainable relationship for you? And in that probably is vulnerability, right? Because what we want out of a relationship is really to be seen, heard, loved to the core of who we are. And there's no way that we can do that for somebody or accept that from somebody if we don't allow them in to see who we really are, right? And so vulnerability is just it's a choice, and then it's an action, and it's just done with courage, right? And for the first bit, it's scary. You know what? Even after that, it's scary. But what happens is that you begin to show up for yourself when you decide to be vulnerable with your partner. You show up for yourself and you are saying that the relationship that you're in is worth it, and you are worth it to be seen for who you are, and the partner that you are with is either going to rise and it's going to be contagious, and then they are also going to be vulnerable with you and you're going to grow in strength with that, or they're going to decide not to do that, and then guess what? They're not the partner for you. Does that make sense? Right? And so the thing with vulnerability as well is that it's not always easy and comfortable, right? A lot of times when we have to be, or when we're choosing to be authentic and vulnerable, it's times where it calls for having an uncomfortable talk about a fear or an insecurity or a memory, a trigger point, whatever that is, right? And so when being vulnerable with your partner, or if your partner is being vulnerable with you, it's really important to hold space and have grace for yourself and your partner, right? Does that make sense? I hope this helps. Now let's dive into it a little bit as well on the partnership level, because one thing that is super helpful is being able to communicate with your partner that is the kind of relationship that you want to have, right? And so, for example, my partner and I, when we were first getting into relationship together, we sat down and we talked about all of the lessons that we had learned from our past relationships on how not to do things. And we knew that we wanted this relationship to be healthy and sustainable. So we had almost like a business talk, and there's nothing wrong with that. A business talk about how the relationship needed to be in order for it to be what we deemed as successful, right? And that was that we were going to be open and honest and authentic, that we were going to be vulnerable, and that we were going to show up for ourselves as well as show up for our partners, right? And because also we have kids, and so by doing that, we were also teaching our daughters to do that, and we were teaching them how to have that healthy relationship that we want them to have in the future. Okay? So being able to communicate about the fact that you want to have that kind of a relationship is really, really important. And the last thing that I'm going to say about this is that it takes practice. We can't go from living a life of being like kind of hiding behind a mask for everybody and not being vulnerable to all of a sudden one day just having this conversation with our partner and then deciding that, oh, okay, we're gonna have a vulnerable relationship where we're authentic and just show up, and then the next day we're fine and that's how it is. No, you have years and years of unlearning to do and to like create that new and healthy habit, right? And so there's been many times where I find myself kind of falling back into the putting up a fence, putting up that wall to do what I think to keep myself safe, and then me having to remind myself, wait, that's how I used to do it and it didn't work. We decided that we were going to do it different this time. And then having to come forward and be vulnerable and have that talk, right? Or show up or share the story or whatever that looks like, and just be courageous and just do it, even though it felt uncomfortable and it felt kind of scary and all of that, right? And so now we're 2 years past that, and it's getting easier and it's getting easier. It's still scary to show up and be vulnerable, 100%. But you know what? Every time that I've done it, or every time that he has done it, it's given each other the opportunity to rise, to support, right? To acknowledge, to embrace. And every time that happens, it builds our partnership into a stronger and a stronger thing. So I hope that helps.